Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us on this webinar. Just to make sure you're in the right place, this particular webinar is aimed at Workday Adaptive Planning customers, so people are already using Workday Adaptive Planning. If you are using it, you've made a great choice so far, so thank you very much for joining us. And Ben here is reprising a session he did at our actual event where we did a face-to-face, and this is really a wider presentation to give you some viewpoint on the latest features, some of the other new cool features which have been released. You've got to remember that Workday Adaptive Planning has been in the marketplace for a good 15 plus years. We've got over 6,400 customers on the platform, and that funds quite a lot of R&D. And twice a year, Workday Adaptive Planning releases some major releases, some new features out there. And we totally understand for you as customers, it's hard work to keep on top of all those new features and find out whether using them or not, or whether they're relevant for you. So what Ben's going to do is go through some of those new features, not just from the latest release, but over the last few releases, and just give you an idea of what you could be potentially using. Of course, as we go through this, there is a Q&A box down the bottom. Please do ask questions as we go along. I will rudely interrupt Ben and prompt him on those sort of questions, or I'll answer them myself, typing in as we go along. And of course, if you want to engage more deeply on any of this, then we're here as a trusted partner of Workday to help you out on any adaptive planning questions. That's all we do for the last 25 years. We've been doing budgeting, forecasting for the last number of years, specifically with just Workday Adaptive Planning. So we're happy to help out with any questions. So that's the introductions piece done. I'm going to pass over to Ben to the bulk of it again. I will remind you about the two key things. Firstly, which is one, thank you very much for taking time to join us, and two, questions. Questions and answers down the bottom. We'll try and get those going as we go through the webinar. So over to you, Ben.
Cool. So I'll quickly we'll get the slides out of the way and we'll look at the product as soon as possible, because it's quite a lot of exciting stuff to share with you all. It goes without saying.
It's not just exciting, Ben, it's cool. Yeah,
cool. So that's it. I'm trying to chill out on my use of the word cool. Exciting's the new cool. Cool as well. It is exciting. It's cool. Whatever term you personally use for that kind of stuff. It's all of those things and more. There is a whole bunch of stuff that we have to cover in this particular session, but there's also quite a lot of updates. So I won't go through everything that's out in the latest release, but all the really cool bits. Having said that, I want to quickly flash up this particular slide just to give you a refresher on what's been before. Obviously, as many of you will know, if you've been with Adaptive for a little while, that there are sort of two major updates a year, and they call them R1 and R2, typically land in March and September of each year. This is just showing you what came in sort of September last year and then March this year. Just a quick summary of the updates that we've had in the space of, in just two releases, really. And there's some really exciting stuff in there, things like, I'm going to use this as my opportunity to break out the old laser pointer, because why not? Things like the alternate calendars were quite an interesting one. A lot of customers have quite a lot of use cases for alternate calendars, acquisitions, things like that. If you don't want to have to merge in calendars with new businesses and things like that, you can then load their data in using an alternate calendar and report on it almost immediately, which is quite cool. All sorts of general improvements in terms of performance, sheets, visualizations, things like that, many of which you probably will have all noticed as you've been using your model. I couldn't even pick any out of there, even though I do have my laser pointer for the coolest of the cool, but you can see there's quite a lot in here. New dashboard visuals in the latest release as well. Many of you might have seen that you can now see the sort of the capacity of your cube sheets as well, if you're into that kind of thing. And then also the ability to link reports into dashboards and things like that. Like there's been quite a lot of exciting new features that we've had over the course of the past, as I say, sort of 12 months, if you like, and many more to come, which is exciting. Having covered that, the next thing I want to show you is just a quick flash of what we'll look at on this particular call. This is just a quick summary of some of the highlights really that we're going to look at. I've got sort of a separate list down here as well that I'll run through with you. But essentially, that's kind of what we're looking at. Version queuing, very exciting. Office Connect enhancements, very cool. Dashboard and report multi-select, exciting and cool. I'm sure you'll all agree. But there's been quite a few things that are in here for this particular release. And as many of you will know, you might have been using them already yourselves, which is really exciting. So if you've got any questions, having used them, and you've got your teeth into it, or any tips for us that you might have come across some really unique use case with some of the new features, we'd love to hear it. So stick it down in the Q&A. I'm going to then end the slideshow there because I'm going to show you some stuff. So focusing on sort of the dashboards first and foremost, let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see it a bit better. One of the first things that's come out is MultiSelect for dashboards. I think we had this feature in reports previously before, so you may be familiar with this. It's exactly what you'd expect. I've got a nice little dashboard here, nice finance top line KPIs, the usual stuff. If I take something like my level structure at the top here, if I give that a click, the new feature is that I can now select multiple options of this instead of just being one summary version. For example, here we break down into subsidiary companies. Previously I could say, actually, I just want to take this company. It will highlight everything underneath it. So kind of a multi-select in a way, but not really. The new feature allows me to essentially select multiple options, as you'd expect. So maybe I want to take, within the US, I want to take out a selection of subsidiaries, departments, entities, whatever within my level structure. I can now multi-select those. When I head back, you can see it now shows that I've got 4 selected, and it will give me a nice sort of combination of data based on those selections. Again, it seems fairly simple, but quite exciting. I'm sure you'll all agree. You can also do that with dimensions as well and everything else. It's not just the level structure. You can see here I've got departments as a dimension that sits across all of this data. Again, I could say, give me a smattering of departments across the business. And then head back. I've picked out 7 there, and it's then going to constrain that for me to show just those 7. Real wow factor stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. That's the multi-select. There's also been a tweak to the context filters as well. Now, context filters is quite a flashy way of saying drop downs at the top. Essentially, you can see we've got these drop downs here. As many of you know, if I go to the edit option within a dashboard, I can then go to my, maybe you don't know this, by default, it will show me the options for the actual dashboard. So if I select a chart, for example, while I'm in edit mode, I can edit the appearance settings and the filters and things like that for each individual visual, which you may already know. But if I click on the company summary, or in this case, the name of the perspective, the pack at the top left there, whilst I'm in edit mode, it will allow me to then change the settings for the actual perspective itself. There's a couple in here. Some new ones, and these are the ones that I'm highlighting for this particular update, are these 2 here. 2 little toggles that allow you to remove or add the time and currency filters. So for example, you can see we've got a time drop down up here as well. And because we're a multi-currency model, in this case, we have currency in the top as well. I can now remove those if I want to, just by clicking the toggles. There's a few good use cases for that. Maybe you want to just constrain it for your end users a little bit. You don't want them to, as they change their selection in the levels, for example, or the pack is updated, or they pick out a new plan, a new budget, the time and the currency will update automatically anyway. So maybe you want to take these options away from them just to make it a little bit more streamlined, make it a bit less confusing, especially if you've got someone quite senior who's looking at a dashboard for reporting purposes, maybe having 10 filters on the top is a bit much. So now you can get rid of time and currency and maybe just have something like level, and then any dimensions you might put on there could be things like product categories, cost centers, things like that. So just, again, really, really simple kind of change, but really nice. And again, very exciting. There's also an option in the dashboards as well. There's not much else in terms of visual presentations that have changed in the dashboards, but there is also the change to the sheets, which is probably one of the most exciting ones for the dashboards, I think. You can see here, again, this is another dashboard we've got, but this time we've embedded a sheet within it. So here I've, very simply, I can change some units in a budget, for example, for sales, for products, as a discount percentage as well. This is a typical sheet view. So if any of you guys have embedded sheets on your dashboards already, then you'll be familiar with this. You'll know what this looks like. What they've added to Adaptive in this latest update is the ability to optimize these sheets, but retain data entry functionality. So you can see there, this is a normal sheet embedded. I can input data on that sheet. Many of you may have known this feature already, and if you didn't, that's fine. It's a double update for you in that case. But whilst we're in edit mode and I've got that sheet selected, you can see there's a toggle on the right-hand side here that says Optimize Sheet. Now, what this will do is it will basically get rid of a lot of this white space at the top and give you a really streamlined, very sort of visually pleasing way of presenting the sheet, which I personally think it's a much nicer way of sort of presenting the sheets in a dashboard. But previously, when I click this toggle, it would then prevent data entry, because it's kind of the way that they pull the sheet together for that view means that it doesn't support data entry. Now that I've clicked Optimize Sheet, the main change in the update is that I can now input data in this new optimized view. It also allows you to make changes to dimensions, which previously you would have had to have applied the change to the embedded sheet and then save that change. That was the way it was before, and then you enter data in the normal sheet embedment. Now you can change the data in the optimized view, and you can change the actual dimension members as well on the view. So I could change it to, say, customer 2, for example, and it doesn't affect any of the other visualizations around the edge. So I don't need to add the dimensions to a context filter, for example, that affects everything within this view. I can just make the changes directly to the sheets. So essentially just enhancing the way that sheets work in the dashboards, which again, a very cool feature. That's kind of it for the dashboards. A couple of nice little touches there for updates, which is nice. The next thing I'm going to show you is kind of a sort of a tips and tricks thing, really. It's less of an update, but something that I've noticed quite a few people weren't aware of as something that you could do in Adaptive. So I thought I'd just highlight it as part of this call. This is your sheet list. So you guys will maybe be familiar with this when you're creating new sheets. I'll just quickly flash up where that is, right? So in the model management pane, which you can obviously get to through the navigation menu here, through to modeling, and then to model management. In here, you've got these two options, your level assigned and your user assigned sheets. Now, each of those will look a little bit like this. It's where you can organize your sheets, create new cube modeled sheets, things like that. There's two things I want to show you in here. One of them's a little bit silly, not necessarily useful, but you can embed emojis into the Unicode approved emojis into the names of your sheets. So you can see here I've got a kissy emoji and a silly face emoji and a nice kind of cowboy hat emoji. So you can see if I open up my screens list, my sheets here on the dashboard, you can see they pop up on the left-hand side. Now, obviously, I'm just trying to be a bit silly with it, but you can actually embed some really useful emojis. Maybe, for example, you want to use, there's some chart emojis, some that look like ledger books, things like that. I've noticed quite a nice little use cases if you want to jazz up your sheets list like this, make it a little bit, give it a bit of context, for example, maybe for expenses, you've got a particular, kind of a little visual element you can put in there. You can actually customize the sheet list with those Unicode emojis, which is just a bit of fun. But you can see I've just popped a couple in there. It's a case of quite literally, you can see here, pasting the emoji directly into the name. Nothing fancy. So if any of you fancy doing that and if you end up doing that and you find some really interesting ways of using them, please send us a screenshot, because that's always good to see. But the real feature, the real sort of tip that I've got for you in this particular view, aside from the emojis, is if I scroll down to the bottom here, you can see I've added a new sheet, and we've got quite a few sheets in this model. You guys probably have a very similar amount. But right down here, I've got Ben's excellent sheet. It's all about excellence and coolness on this particular webinar. Now, one issue that I've come across myself as a developer, and many of our customers have come across, is if I want to move this sheet up to the top, as of yet, there isn't a drag and drop functionality to move the sheet up there. So let's say I want to drop it into the financial statements grouping up here. What your experience would have been in the past is heading down here to your new sheet, going to the right here, and then clicking the move up arrow. And then there we go. It pushes me back to the top of the sheet. So I've got to scroll down, and there it is. It's moved up one space. Very nice. I'm going to then move that up again. And then I'm going to head back down again, and so on and so on. So it can take you a little time to get it up there. The trick for you that I'm about to share is probably the most overwhelming kind of tip. To move it up quickly, all you need to do is just click it multiple times. Can you believe it? Spam the button is my hashtag for this particular feature. So if I want to move this up, say 10 positions, all I need to do is just click it more or less 10 times before it refreshes. So just give it a quick, I've clicked that 10 or so times. And if I scroll down, you can see there it is. It's jumped up sort of 10-ish or so places. Again, if I want to move it all the way to the top, all I need to do is just click it as many times as I think is appropriate. I don't know how many sheets we've got in here, but I'm just going to span that button a little bit. And then there we go. You can see it's moved all the way up the sheet there. And then I could keep going. I could say, actually, I want to go further. It needs to be in my financial statements. So up it goes. There it is. I'm going to keep on going until we hit the financial statements group. There it is. Ben's excellent sheet sitting at the top. Quick and easy. A couple of seconds to do that. Previously, I would have gone through and knocked them all the way up. Probably one of the most exciting tips and tricks you may have seen so far. Some of you may already have known to do that. Which is fine. One thing that I will note as well, one customer mentioned to me recently that, and I've not been able to replicate it, but if you move it up too many times and it goes past the top of your sheet list, it may circle back down to the bottom again. I was reliably informed about that, but I've not been able to replicate it. So just be cautious. And maybe it's dependent on the browser that you're using or something like that, but just bear in mind, if you go a bit too crazy with your clicking finger, you might send yourself all the way back around. But if you really enjoy moving the sheet up and down the list, then maybe that's a good thing. You can just do it again. So that's a nice little tip and trick for you. Back to one of the sort of new features is version queuing. So previously with adaptive planning, what would happen is, we're looking at our version screen here. Again, you may be familiar with this already. But what I would do here is when I'm creating a new version, I create a new plan version. I call it, Ben's plan with an exclamation mark, and you make all of your changes, customizations. Maybe you make it as a copy of an existing version. Now, if I was to hit save here, let's say I've got a huge model and I'm copying maybe it's a massive forecast with an enormous amount of data, and it takes something like 2 or 3 minutes to copy all that data across multiple models, dimensions, all that kind of stuff. If another user was to come into the model and try and create a new version whilst that was happening, they'd basically get pushed out. They'd say, please wait, somebody else is making a version, you have to stop. The version queuing update allows me to, when I'm hitting save, so if I make that save, so create that new version, it now gives me a little pop-up just down here. You can see if I scroll across, there it is. It's showing me an in progress bar. So as I'm creating a new version, it will say it's in progress. Now, it doesn't seem like the most exciting change. Previously, it would have given you a little pop-up box with a little loading bar, and it might have taken a couple of seconds in this case, or a few minutes to go through, depending on how much data you've got. But you can see that's now done. I can now hit refresh here, and the version's ready. I can then access it. But what it means is for the version queuing is that other user who previously would have been prevented from making a new version can create a new version, but it now will queue it alongside the rest of them. So they don't have to go away, make a cup of tea for 5 minutes, and then come back and make the version. They can make the version, hit save, it will then queue it up. And then as soon as mine is finished, like it has here, the next version will then kick off. Each user is still constrained to making one version per user, if you like. So I can't queue up multiple versions myself in this particular view because of the session ID and everything else. But it now allows multiple users to then create new versions on the fly. So if somebody wants to make a quick blank version to maybe load some data into whilst you're copying the entire universe into a brand new plan, then they're able to do that. So nice little feature update there. So I can hit refresh on the right, and there's my new version ready to go. The next one I'm going to show you is kind of, again, a little bit of a tip and trick. Just, again, feedback from customers. Some of them didn't know they could really do this. So I just wanted to make sure that, you guys have got sort of the latest and greatest in sort of best practices, if you like. What I've got is this reports tab. Now, again, navigation menu on the left, all the way into the reports here, and then into the overview. And it brings you to sort of this kind of view. You can see in this particular model, we've got a whole bunch of folders that we've put our reports into. I'm just going to pick up this Office Connect one, because in this one, we've uploaded a bunch of Excel, PowerPoint, and Word files. Again, some customers didn't know you could do this. You can upload any flat file, not flat file, but any file at all. So it can be JPEGs, PDFs, whatever it might be. You can upload files directly into adaptive planning and use it as a kind of cloud storage. So you can see here we've got, a board book, a board pack, a PowerPoint presentation, the whole Office suite. Whatever you like, you can load in here. You can even take a Google Sheet, save it into like a file if you like, and then upload that in here as well. And what that means is if I click one of these links as a file, it will then automatically download that file for me onto my desktop or wherever I'm going to save it. So rather than opening in a report, it will just automatically download it for me. Now, the tip and trick I have for you is, let's say we take this, this board pack, for example, our Excel file. Maybe it's got a bunch of 50 Office Connect enabled tabs in there. I can click on the little 3 dots on the right-hand side, and I can then send a notification. Now, you would have to share this report with the appropriate people within adaptive planning, but assuming that they've got the proper email addresses in there and they have access to this report, I can click send notification on this pack here. And this pop-up will allow me to then pick who I want to send it to. So in this top option here, I can give that a click, and I can send it to groups of users. So using the user groups, I can send it to all board members, executives, the finance team, HR team, whoever's in those groups. I can send it to individual users, or I can send it to levels. So anyone who has access to a particular level, let's say I want to send this to everybody who's in company A, who's on adaptive planning, I can do that. So if I click OK, you can see it's going to send it to everybody in company A. I can change the subject line because this is an email that's going out to them. And I can also change the message that they receive as well. But the important thing is that they'll receive this link down at the bottom. Now, when they click on that link in the email, it will automatically take them to adaptive planning. To the login page. They hit their login credentials, they log into Adaptive as they normally would, and it will automatically download that Excel, PowerPoint, or Word pack. It's a tip and trick in a way because, as I say, not many people knew they could upload these files into adaptive planning and kind of use it as a cloud storage for all of these financial reports. Many of them were using like OneDrive and Dropbox and that kind of stuff, almost in tangent with adaptive. But you can do that, but you can also send notifications out. So when the board book's ready and refreshed, you've gone through Office Connect and refreshed all the data in your pack. Maybe it's 50 tabs, like I say, maybe it's 100. You can then upload it into adaptive planning into this report folder and then send the notification straight from here. So everybody's always downloading the latest copy of the pack. And then they can log into Office Connect and then hit refresh if they have access, but maybe it's just a static Excel pack, for example, or a PowerPoint or a statement or a Word book or whatever it might be. So again,
Ben, quick
yes.
question just came on. Is there a maximum size for files? I know there's some sort of fair use limit, so you can't load up gigabytes of files, but that's more total volume of files rather than a specific limit to the size of one file. Do you know if there's any limits on that?
I think the limit at the moment is about 500 megabytes as a maximum file size. It may have changed. It may be less now. I think it's about 500. I
So
don't think.
big. Yeah,
it's massive. Like you would never. It will be beyond the realms of what your file sizes would hit. Even in a large Excel pack, I would doubt you'd get beyond sort of 15, 30 megs, something like that. But yeah, there's, as I understand it, video files, for example, I think there's also like file type constraints, although I've not tested it, but for example, if you try and upload like an MPEG or an MP4 or like a video file, for example, then I think it doesn't let you do
and
that.
I know in the contract they tried to put some sort of fair use, as in you can't suddenly use it to store all your photos or whatever.
Family albums and everything else. That's I've got Kung Fu Panda uploaded on one of the on one of the models we've got. But no, you can't. So I think there is. I think it's something like 500 megabytes. Well, I've not tested it in a while, but then there's also the file type as well. So like you say, the fair use kind of thing. They expect that basically what you would expect to be able to upload to this kind of platform, you can. If you then try and start using it as like general cloud storage for multimedia kind of stuff, that's when you'll run into an issue. But it's all sort of like be fairly sensible about what you want to throw in here. Again, if you want to share out Shrek 2 or whatever, then you can just
very good. As you say, really good place to store your key documents and also share them with people. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I brought it up as like kind of a tip and trick, because like I say, not many customers sort of knew that you could do this, and it's a really really handy little feature to be able to do. So the next thing we're going to cover is again another feature. So this is an update this time. It's the exporting of data. So very quickly, just to show you where this is, top left in your nav menu, when you go down to integration, you've got your integration stuff at the top, so your actual sort of integration, with your source systems, but then you have the ability here to import data manually from Excel files, that kind of stuff. But you also can export data down here. Now, again, many people didn't know that you could do this, but this is what the view looks like. You can select a number of, account codes, whether it's using external codes or names and codes from Adaptive, for example. So basically GL codes. You can choose whether or not to include codes and names and display names in the export file. So you've got a bit of functionality now in what you export, but the update really is in this part here. So you can select across your entire model. You can see here a list of all my GLs at the top, all of my model accounts, my cube accounts, custom accounts, metric accounts, everything. I can extract a massive flat file with every single model I've got. So when we're looking at our nav view here, you can see we've got all of these models all the way down there. I can extract all the data across all of them, across all my levels and all my dimensions, all in one go, big chunky old file. Or you can just take a selection of things. So let's say, for example, here, I want to take across all of my levels. Let's say we go to one of our cubes and we go to something like, I want to take my product revenue cube. Maybe I want to extract it and I want to load it into another system or whatever it is. Maybe it's an output that we want to reuse somewhere else. What you previously would have had to do with this extraction page is select the items you wanted to take. So let's say we take sales details, for example. If I want to take all of these accounts that are in here, I'd have to select them all one by one. Now, the update allows you to then, instead of doing that, right-click on an account. So let's say we take sales details. There's a new little context menu that pops up in here that says check descendants or uncheck descendants. So that really simple change, but nice little quality of life thing that's just come in. I can check descendants and it will pick out all of the accounts underneath it for me. Likewise, I could go to something like product revenue as the entire cube, and I could say just check descendants and it will take everything. So all of the accounts underneath, as well as all of the children underneath those accounts as well. So again, just little quality of life things to make it extracting the data just a little bit easier. And again, that works for your level structure as well. So let's say we were to untick everything, and I could say, take just my operations from company A. I want to check the descendants under there, and it will bring through everything from that particular branch of the tree. So again, nice little quality of life feature there. I won't extract the data, but everything else works as you would expect. The last one thing I'll just quickly flash up before I show you the sort of the Office Connect stuff, which is really really kind of exciting, is this view here. So one thing, again, in terms of integration, one of the smaller kind of visual updates is that there's just a new integration splash screen. Nothing too exciting here. It's just a visual update, but similar to the Reports tab, which you guys, if you've been using Adaptive for a while, may remember this. The Reports tab has now got a more kind of, and as well as for the dashboards, a more kind of sort of Web 2.0 Workdayified kind of visual presentation to it. Before it was a little bit more, a little bit rawer. But now it's more very jazzy and flash and looks quite nice, easy to navigate and that kind of stuff. They've done the same for the integration page as well. So previously you would have had that little list of your tasks to run on the left hand side, and then a bit of white space showing all the details on the right. You can see here it now just shows me a list of all my tasks in the same way. So consistent kind of visualizations there. And it also shows me the status as a nice little progress bar, when it was last run, the next scheduled run if it is scheduled, and any failed tasks pop up in here. There's a separate view, and it includes some details around why they failed. So there's a little bit more information in there as well. But it's just a nice overhaul visually as well. So just in case you guys hadn't seen that, it's a nice little visual update, which is always good to see. There's probably so much more I could show you. One of the other, I'll show you one more thing before I kind of wrap up, but there is also quite a few other updates as well. If you want to see the update, like the comprehensive list of updates, you can do that yourselves as well. So obviously, you joined the webinar today. Thank you for coming. But if you want to follow this up with ourselves, then please do. If you want to just have a little trawl through some of the knowledge base yourself and see all of the updates listed out, all you need to do is log into your adaptive planning instance and head up to the top right and click on this question mark wherever it is on any page. This will take you directly to the knowledge base, or the documentation. We call it the knowledge base documentation portal. You can see in here, if the page has its own, let's say you're on a cube sheet and you click that, it will take you to the cube sheet knowledge base article. Here it's taking me to the main menu, so I can click on this what's new option on the left hand side here, and this will automatically take me to the release notes. Obviously only accessible if you're a customer, but within this I can see a breakdown of all of the notes from sort of past releases. So you can see, this is the current release, and I can see sort of the previous 4 releases and beyond as well. So just to quickly highlight this here for you, you can see if I expand that out a little bit, you can see it's nicely broken down step by step into every single release. So version queuing, for example, that we just talked about right up there, if you give that a click, it will give you a nice little video of Workday America showing you the ropes, giving you a nice sort of use case examples, things like that. Basically, just a nice little walkthrough, as well as some details around what it means, how it works, that kind of stuff. So please refer to the knowledge base article for anything that I've not mentioned today. There's a few things in here that are a bit more detailed that I haven't shown off, but obviously please check it out, or reach out to us if you want to have a more in-depth session as well on the updates and everything you can do with them. The last thing I'll show you just to wrap up is about Office Connect. Who doesn't love a bit of Office Connect? There has been a couple of updates. I'll show you a couple of tips and tricks, and then show you the latest update as well. The tips and tricks that I'm just quickly going to show you, again, you may know these, but things that customers have fed back and didn't necessarily know about, even though some of them were using Office Connect for their reporting, but just hadn't come across these features. For example, here I've got a pack that is linked up to Office Connect. So here we've got our linked cells, and I can see everything's clicking through, the labels and everything connecting to my adaptive planning instance. One thing that some customers didn't know is that I can select any one of these rows, let's say this revenue line, for example, and I can expand it by clicking the little expand option at the top there. And it will automatically essentially pull out the same formatting, but expand that down to a GL level. I can also, if I've got dimensions on this particular sheet, so if I have a dimension on this row, like product, for example, I can have it expanded by product first and then by GL, or by GL and then by products. And you can configure how it does that using the expand options under here. You can see there's a modify expansion option there. And I could say, if I just collapse that down a second, I could go into modify expansion whilst I've got that row selected. If I had like a dimension on there, and it would show me a little pop-up box saying, what do you want to do first? Dimensions, then accounts, or how do you want to do it? So there's an option in there to sort of expand and sort of manipulate the data a little bit within Office Connect as well. One other thing you can do in here, which some people again didn't know about, is use filters to sort of contextualize the data you're looking at. So you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got a little filters pane in that sort of context menu. I can enable the filters on here. You can see I've already picked out two, one for the Netherlands and one for Canada for my levels. I can add in, using the little plus there, as many filters as I like. Could be account filters, could be dimensions, could be time structure, could be currency, could be whatever you want. And you can add them on here. So let's say maybe we put on, I don't know, something else. Maybe, yeah, something like brand, for example. Maybe we put on brand and we put on burgers, and from the grill, why not? We put on two new filters. So I could say, show me the data that just relates to the Netherlands, or maybe just show me the data for Canada, and I could pick something for my brands as well. As I hit refresh at the top, with that filter enabled and clicked, you can see it will then automatically update the data to just show me what's been filtered. So you can see there, because the header, that label I put on was for my level structure, it's now showing me that for Canada, but also the data that it's pulling through is now all related to that filter as well. So again, just something people didn't really know about, but there's quite a lot of things you can do with Office Connect that are sort of quite useful beyond just linking the data and hitting refresh. There's a couple of things you can do in here as well. That one other thing I'll show you quickly before I show you the real update, and which is the last thing I've got for you, is in the workbook properties at the top left. One thing, by default, this setting is enabled, I think, when you install Office Connect, but there's an option down here to clear data. Now, I've got it set to never clear data upon save, which means, when I click save and I save this pack with my Canada filter selected, if anyone else was to open this pack, if it was on OneDrive or whatever, it would automatically show them this view with Canada enabled. And if they wanted to remove that filter, they'd have to log into Office Connect, refresh the data themselves, as you'd imagine. In the workbook properties option here, if I set it to always clear data upon save, what that means is when I now hit save with that setting enabled, it will automatically clear out all of the data for me. So obviously, in terms of data integrity and protection, GDPR, that kind of stuff, if you've got data on a laptop and you want to make sure that this pack is always safe, now that I've saved that, it obviously clears everything out across all of my tabs in the pack that are connected to Office Connect, which is really handy. To get the data back, I would then again have to log into Office Connect and hit refresh, and it will then pull back all of that data for me. So it basically just gives you a bit of peace of mind over the data you've got, right? Just because it's in a static pack doesn't mean it's then exposed to the usual security issues you would otherwise have in something like a static tool in Excel. I'm just going to change that before I forget to do it in the future. Again, there's all sorts of stuff I could show you, but again, if you want to do more tips and tricks for Excel, I mean, as I say, feel free to reach out to us. I'm happy to walk you through everything that Office Connect has to offer. There's a lot you can do with it, a lot of really sort of best practice, sneaky features as well that we might say for the next webinar, because there's quite a lot to cover. But just to sort of show you the last thing, it's a very simple update for Office Connect. Nothing too crazy has changed in here. The only thing is, when you click refresh at the top left, as many of you may know, you have the option to refresh all of your sheets at once. So you can see down at the bottom there, I've got quite a few tabs. I think 7 or 8 of them are connected to Office Connect. Many customers we have about, some have 100 plus tabs. If you've got repeating reports, maybe multiple P&Ls in an Excel sheet, for example, for various reporting, budgeting purposes, whatever it might be. An easy way to do that is to create all those tabs as a copy of a single view like this, and then apply those filters across cost centers, across brands, across whatever it might be, and then save that pack. Now, the update here allows me to hit refresh all sheets, and when I do that, we've got a nice new visual that you can see there. So you can see it's updating all of this stuff. It's a bit more in terms of the data it presents, so I can now see the progress across all of my tabs, all of my structures, my time, and everything else. But if I've got a large pack with a lot of sheets that are being updated at once, it will go through them iteratively. So we'll start, from left going on. You can see it starts with my ad hoc tab and then goes to functional P&L, formatted, and so on. But what it allows me to do is essentially ignore this window. And once the formatted tab has been updated, for example, I can then keep working with it whilst it's updating the other tabs in the background. Previously, when you hit refresh all sheets in Excel, in Office Connect, it would just essentially lock up and say, okay, we're refreshing now, hold your horses. So if you've got 100 plus tabs or whatever that are all being refreshed, you just got to wait while it pulls through all the data. Now, with the latest update in Office Connect, when you hit that refresh all sheet at the top left, it will now update them. It breaks it down into chunks, essentially. So now that it's updating, I could go back to the formatted P&L, make changes to it after the data is loaded there, and maybe it's got 100 more tabs to go. I can start, making changes or whatever, saving screenshots, things like that of that view, or making changes to assumptions, whatever, as it's going through and updating the rest without keeping me stuck in that kind of refresh loop, if you like. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's just a quick run through. Again, we just to reiterate there, we've covered sort of all the dashboard functionality that's quite new, the ability to move your sheets up and down in a list, maybe use some emojis as well if that's your bag, version queuing, sharing, board packs and reports in Office Connect, exporting data and the ability to sort of have a bit more flexibility with that, and then obviously some updates to Office Connect as well. In fact, there is one more thing before I hand over with Office Connect that some of you may have noticed this already as well. In the Elements tab at the top left, under the Time section, because nothing more exciting than time, very fundamental concept. I've got a couple of alternate calendars in here you can see as well, which is just not necessarily relevant, but good to see. In our default time hierarchy, and you will all have this already, there's a new option in here, which is our context pane, or context is already there because it would show us a couple of things before, but we've now got 3 new options. We've got month to date, quarter to date, and year to date as options in here. So what you can do now is you can drag and drop dates onto your columns here, for example. So, say December 2022 there. I could drag across month to date onto December 2022, and it will show me the month to date numbers for that particular period. Could be month to date for August, could be quarter to date for October, could be year to date for any particular month. So it just gives you the ability there to put in some sort of context filters, if you like. So quite handy, especially for balance sheet stuff. Some feedback we've been getting from customers as well. Just a nice little feature there in terms of just how you can play around with the data in Office Connect. Having said that, that's everything I've got for you today. There's also some other stuff, as I say, check the knowledge base. There's a good list of stuff in there. You may have noticed some little changes as well, like report performance has also improved across the board. So scales much even better than they did before. So we've now got customers that have got, sort of quite a lot of data across like a lot of dimensions on reports, and it now runs, impeccably fast. But there's little things like that I haven't covered here, but there's still a lot more to see in the latest update. So you've got probably like 5 months to get through all these before the next one comes out. So better get cracking. But that's everything I've got to show you for today.
Thank you very much, Ben. We will be looking. We started introducing these customer days and also these webinars to share the new features. So we'll keep these going and try and give our viewpoint on what we think is important coming out of those features as such. Please do ask any questions you've got. If you've got any particular points you want to raise, now's the time to do it. We've just got a couple of minutes at the end. If not, just speaking, wait to see. Oh, there was a question. Look, I think an open one. Yes, there will be a recording of the session. I will send it out, which is always very useful. Of course, myself and Ben and I stand ready for any other questions you got. So if anything else comes up, just drop us a message. You'll find us on LinkedIn, or you can find our email and messages. Hopefully you've got some contacts. Reach out and we'll happily see what we can do to help you. But if that's all the questions and all the stuff, we'll let you crack on with your day. And thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy banging through your budgets and forecasts, which I suspect you're doing right now for the next 2024. Right. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.